Well, I'm here with two incredible Canadian leaders, Shaila Visser, Senior Vice President of Alpha International and National Director of Alpha Canada in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Sue Wigston, CEO of Wigston in Guelph, Ontario, to talk about leading ourselves and our team as well. Welcome, Shaila and Sue, to See Her Love.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So thrilled to be back on.
Yes, I know. For both of you, I'm so glad. Let's start off right with this question, which is an interesting question, but necessary. How do you lead yourself well through challenging times? Shaila, let's start with you. This leading of yourself. It seems so foreign and strange to say, but important.
Well, let's just say that I think I'm the hardest person to lead. My team isn't harder. No one else is harder than leading myself, because I think as the leader, you have to be self-motivated, and you have to find that place in which leadership bubbles up from you, that motivation bubbles up from you, and the passion, your vision, your conviction really needs to come out of a place inside of you. And for me, as a Christian, that place comes from my relationship with God, in which He gives me a full tank of energy. He gives me strength. He gives me wisdom that I wouldn't ordinarily have. And from that place of relationship with God, I'm able to then move forward to lead other people. So for me, it's about leading myself into a place of intimacy with God, and out of that leading others. But again, I'm the hardest person to lead, and I'm learning.
All right. Thank you for your honesty and authenticity, Shaila. That's good. So what about you? How do we lead ourselves, lead yourself well?
I agree with everything that you just said. And I had to really make a commitment when this season started. And I changed careers on April 1st of this year. So I'm in a whole new environment. And I really had to make a commitment to take care of myself. And I had to make that commitment that I would change some of my patterns. I would be so intentional about every morning, starting the morning with my quiet time. And I just had to have that. And I believe that as a leader, the body follows the head. And I knew that if I was not healthy through this time, and if I could not be at my best this time, then I can't lead others to be their best at this time. So I really found I had to make that commitment. And I also had to give myself permission to really use this as a season of learning, and just admit that there's a lot of answers I don't have right now. And as a leader, you don't count on me to have all the answers. You count on me to continue to learn and help find the answers. So those are two things that I really had to focus on.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, that is really, really good. A lot of times we don't take care of ourselves, and then we lead out of like an empty tank all the time, and then we're surprised when we have burnout and we're exhausted, and it makes a lot of sense that we need to lead ourselves and take care of ourselves well. One of the biggest questions, Shaila and Sue, for me has been people saying, how do I lead my team well through this very challenging, unfamiliar time? I want to get tips from you because you're leading teams. What would you say, maybe one or two examples of how to lead your team well in a time that nobody would have guessed would be like this for 2020? Shaila.
I think, first of all, listening has played a huge role in my leadership in this season, about listening to the team and what they need, and actually slowing down. I'm a real activator personality. And so slowing myself down to enter into where they at. Many of them have had to have kids at home. And of course, now they're back at school. And so there's a lot of different changes happening. And so I'd say listening has been primary. A second thing in leading teams is to be a person of hope. And I think that's really important, that I'm a person of hope. And then the last I'd say is that I'm a person of peace, that I am not all in a flap about what's been happening, but rather that I find a place to be centered, to be a person of peace, so that I bring hope and I can listen and enter into what others are going through. I think that's really led us to a season of great success in our line of work, and an ability to serve our customer well as we do a national work.
Yeah, and it sounds like not to be so reactive, right? Because sometimes when you're not listening, a lot of times when we don't listen, then we react out of places that then cause a lot more issues down the line. So I love that person of peace. That's good. That's really, really good. Sue, for you, leading your team well through challenging times.
Yeah, I have. I've learned a lot about this, and especially I'm a people with people kind of person, and so doing this remotely, there's really three things that I have found. If my teams are going to feel confident and comfortable, first is alignment, is making sure that everybody is aligned around vision, around current priorities, daily, weekly, and that they understand how they fit. The second has been to really take the time to set clear expectations. And I find that when people are sitting at home, sometimes they're just like, well, what am I supposed to be doing? And is this what they really want? And I can't just pop in and ask. So taking the time to set clear expectations and then constantly, and I agree, it comes down to listening, figuring out what each person needs in order to feel engaged. And it's different for absolutely everybody. So really focusing on, are we aligned? Do people have clear expectations? And does everybody individually feel engaged? That's kind of my checklist every single day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Encouragement to those struggling today. I mean, with motivation, with direction, with hope for so many people who are leading small teams, big teams, leading their self. Shaila, what would you say as encouragement to the people listening and watching, going, help me?
Well, I think that's the cry of the heart of every leader who's saying, help me. How can I learn and grow in this season and lead well? And so there's a Bible verse that I love from the book of Jeremiah in the Old Testament. And it's in chapter 33 and it's verse 3. And it says, call to me. And this is saying about God, call to me and I will tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. And I love that Bible verse because whether you adhere to the Christian faith or whether you're just like, hey, I have spiritual questions, you too can call to God and say, hey, if you're real, or if you believe he's real, call to him and he will tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. I believe we have a God who wants to really help us to lead well and will give us hints about what we should be doing to plan for the future. So I'd say that's a spiritual answer. And then on a practical level, I have really come to pull myself back to say, hey, we can't plan a year out or 3 years out like we used to. We have to plan actually in 6, 8 weeks chunks. And then, thinking to Christmas and what are we going to do? And not think further ahead than that. There's so much unknown that we have to be comfortable
Yeah.
with the unknown and lead with what we do know in this moment. So long-term planning is not probably smart at this point, but short-term sprints is the way to go. And I think in doing so, people won't feel the burden of, I have no idea where we'll be in a year from now. Nobody does. But if you take it in short sprints, I think you'll find that if your vision is clear and compelling, like Sue said, and you know what you're doing, that you'll just stay on track in shorter sprints than you've done before.
That is
Mhm.
great, great advice. Sue, you're nodding your head like this as Shayla's going.
I,
What would you say for encouragement
yeah,
for leaders today?
I so agree. I just finished something called Win the Day Challenge with John Gordon. It was for a 14-day challenge, and one of the days, the encouragement that just blew me away was, our purpose is greater than the challenges that we face. And the more time I can spend just going back to my purpose, which is to love God and love people, that will overcome every challenge that I have every day. And it forces me to listen, or sorry, to talk more to myself rather than listen to myself. And, the more I talk and just speak those words of truth, I will stop hearing the complaints and the noise and the fears that I have. And my mantra for years has been, we have the promise, and we have the promise from God, and he has given us his word. And I have read the end of the book and we win. But we're in chapter 7 right now, and chapter 7 sucks. And that's okay, because chapter 8 is a brand new chapter with hope ahead. And so that, is a mantra I tell myself every single day.
So good.
So good.
So good.
To both of you, thank you so much. Shaila and Sue, these are great tips and learnings for me, and I know for our viewers and listeners. Thanks also for being such inspirations of women in leadership. Yes, yes, and yes, we're cheering you on. Thank you for those great tips. I know lots of people are going to be writing notes, and thank you so much for being on the show.